While Gaza is enduring its devastating war, an increasingly brutal battle is being fought over land in another Palestinian territory, the West Bank. There, Israeli settlers are attacking Palestinian communities more frequently and ferociously than ever before. Because of those attacks, more than 100 Palestinians have fled their homes in the northern West Bank in just the past 10 days. Last year, more than 1,500 were forced off their land. Special correspondent Leila Molana Allen traveled through the occupied West Bank to meet the Israeli settlers who are determined to expand their outposts throughout that contested territory.
As war rages on, long before the dust has settled on thousands of destroyed homes in Gaza, these Israelis are calling to be allowed to build Jewish homes amidst the rubble. No Israelis have been allowed to live in Gaza since the government pulled out nearly 20 years ago. There was violent protest at the time. Those who called it a mistake now feel vindicated by the October 7th Hamas attacks. And as the world watches the war in Gaza, extremist settlers have taken advantage of the distraction. Armed mobs have descended on ancient olive groves on multiple occasions, burning them to the ground, accelerating their harassment of Palestinian villagers and violent land seizures, shooting Palestinians who stand in their way. Last week, a Palestinian man was shot dead after a group of armed settlers stormed the village of Jeet, setting homes aflame. In late October, 3 of Yasser Audi's family members were killed when a group of young settlers stormed through their village of Kusra on a shooting rampage. The next day, as they drove to the graveyard to bury them, their car was surrounded by armed settlers. 15-year-old Yasser's father and brother were executed in front of him.
When we leave the house, we don't know whether we will come back home or not. When we go anywhere, we find settlers and soldiers in front of us. They may attack us or kill us. They don't care.
Suddenly the man of the house, Yasser doesn't know how to protect his little sisters and brothers from the surging violence.
I fear for my family. Every day people are being killed. I'm afraid of the future. It may kill me at any moment.
Israel's right-wing coalition, led by pro-settlement hardliners, has ignored Western entreaties to intervene. Last month, the Israeli government announced it would officially recognize 5 more illegal settlements in the West Bank and says it plans to allow settlers to expand into a record amount of further West Bank land this year. Adding fuel to the fire, many reservists called up to fight from settler communities have joined IDF units in the West Bank. Human rights groups have documented multiple cases of uniformed soldiers seen providing military protection to the settler attacks. The IDF says it's investigating the accusations. Critics say the IDF's past form shows it cannot be trusted to investigate itself. Of more than 1,200 complaints of Israeli soldier violence against Palestinians from 2017 to 2020, fewer than 1% were charged. Eyar Segal lives in one of those communities. Givat Arnon, built strategically above a Palestinian village, as most settlements are. Several months ago, 2 settlers were shot and injured on the main road here. More than half the residents here are fighting in the reserves. Eyar wants immediate resettlement of Gaza and says Palestinians should not be allowed to live there.
People from Gaza don't care about building their lives. Instead, they're only focused on trying to destroy our lives. This went on for a long time without any military or intelligence capability to combat them effectively.
Eyar insists the violence is caused by Palestinians refusing to accept what she sees as her biblical right to live on this disputed land, which they call Judea and Samaria, and that the only solution is for as many Israelis as possible to move here.
We do not apologize for defending ourselves. The army cannot maintain a prolonged presence without Jews living here.
These settlers are breaking international law, which prohibits Israelis from building in the West Bank or parts of East Jerusalem. More than 3 million Palestinians live in the occupied West Bank. The 1993 Oslo Accords ruled 60% of disputed West Bank land off limits to settlers, in hopes that it would one day form the bulk of a Palestinian state. But in the decades since, Oslo collapsed into memory, and settlers have slowly and increasingly publicly expanded their outposts despite international outcry. Some 700,000 Israelis now live on this land. A frustrated President Biden has slapped sanctions on several known violent settlers and organizations that fund and support them. He even threatened to sanction some IDF units that have been repeatedly accused of abuses of power and violence against Palestinians if they didn't reform. There have also been Palestinian attacks on settler communities, but they are far less frequent. In April, 14-year-old settler Benjamin Achimer disappeared and was found murdered. A Palestinian man from the nearby village of Mughayir was charged. In the following days, Israeli settlers rampaged through surrounding villages, burning homes and shooting at least 4 Palestinians dead. According to the UN, 5 settlers have been killed since October 7th. At least 11 Palestinians have been killed and 230 injured by settlers in that time, with more than 1,250 settler attacks recorded on Palestinian villages in the course of the war. In the same period, nearly 600 Palestinians, including 137 children, have been killed in the occupied West Bank by Israeli security forces. Hebron is the site of the ancient tomb of Abraham, so it's equally holy for Jews, Muslims and Christians. Some of the most hardline settlers live in this area, alongside Palestinian communities, making it a constant flashpoint for violence. In the settlement of Ma'ale Hever, high in the Hebron Hills, settler activist Benjamin Shinberg has long used his online platform to advocate for expansion on political and religious grounds.
So we have here a weapon room within our community, and usually it's full with weapons because they are reserved for emergency, which has come now. So all the weapons inside are now distributed.
For him, October 7th made this an existential battle.
I look at them as a national enemy. I believe there are good people there, although currently the trust was shattered.
Like many who opposed Israel pulling out of Gaza, he believes the Hamas terror attacks were a direct result of that decision.
We said we cannot leave that because it's the Jewish state, Jewish country, and the Holy Land. And also we said it will be dangerous. There will be rockets, there will be terror attacks. And they didn't listen. But I think we do have to learn from our mistakes.
Many people say that if Palestinians had their own state, that would stop the violence because they would then have their own land.
The reason that the Palestinians fight us is not because they don't have a state. They will not rest until they destroy the Jewish state. So it's either us or them.
But some believe there's another way. Shaul Yudelman is an avowed expansionist. From a secular family in San Francisco, he moved to Israel after graduating college, learned Hebrew, and moved into a settlement in the West Bank. Shaul and his wife believe it's essential for Jews to live in every part of the land they see as wider Israel. But they also believe they can share it.
I often say that there's really just 2 opinions on this conflict, right? Either there's a peace process or there's an existential struggle for survival. So there's 2 totally different visions of what life could be here going at the same time.
When you see young extremist settlers picking up guns, going and shooting Palestinians, terrifying children, pushing hundreds of them out of the villages that they live in and may never be able to go back to, how do you feel when you see that?
It's horrific, it's a shame. And at the end of the day, what's going on in this conflict, when diplomacy and peace and all those things fail, it's a fight over the land. And that's what people are doing. I think it's a failure to make another political path.
For years, Shaul has worked to build bridges with Palestinian neighbors in the area. As tensions spiral out of control, he's now using those connections to try to restore trust.
So I have a WhatsApp group with Palestinians from the South Hebron Hills and a few Israeli activists there.
Using sympathetic contacts within the IDF and local authorities, Shaul and his allies have been arranging to help local Palestinian farmers harvest their olives and graze their livestock without harassment. He knows Israeli-Palestinian relations couldn't be worse right now, but keeping the channels open gives him hope for a better future.
We're in a time right now where we're at home watching the news, seeing how the horror that this side is doing. To get a phone call from the other side just saying, how are you doing? is everything okay? What can I do? Is very powerful, very real right now. We're not there yet, but that's going to be the work when the fighting stops.
In this shattered region, its devastated communities torn further apart each day. Few now dare to cling to such hope for the future. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Layla Milana Allen in Tekoa Settlement, the West Bank.